Hello, welcome back. Now we're on part 5 of Key to My Heart. We're still in the conference with Melanie and Simon. So here goes. Key to My Heart. Moments before the speaker finished, Melanie was on her feet, walking close to the wall to avoid too much distraction for the audience, mentally going over her next speech. Lunch would be lengthened by 15 minutes due to the fact her next speaker's train had not arrived in Euston yet. The text message on her mobile asking if she could delay the afternoon session to enable him to get there. Sir Claude Roseby was an eminent figure in the city and a much sought after seminar speaker. If he wanted proceedings delayed, then they would be. It came as no surprise to her that nothing seemed to be going smoothly. It never did. It was her job to create the illusion that nothing was wrong when sometimes it was all falling apart. And in the main, she carried out her duties well, except that today she seemed in an uncharacteristic flap. Standing at the front, she thanked the previous speaker for his contribution, saying how much they all appreciated his being there and taking the time out to impart his knowledge to them. Somehow, before she could finish, her eyes drifted, connected with Simon's, something stirring deep in her gut and making her shiver involuntarily. So, well, her face flushed and she closed her eyes, trying to regain some composure. We meet back here at 2:15, okay? She smiled weakly and busied herself, making notes on her clipboard. Class dismissed. He was beside her, so close they were almost touching one another. Hello again. She tried her best to be civil. There'll be quite a queue for lunch. Shouldn't you get going? I was rather hoping that you'd show me the way. Her hand rose automatically, pointing directions, so he lightly took hold of her wrist. I meant personally. I'm not having lunch. You have to eat something. Well, I'm not going. Her face felt flushed again and she dropped her head to cover her embarrassment. No, you're not going anywhere except to have lunch. He proffered his arm, taking hold of hers and wrapping it around his arm, adding, with me. I have work to do. I'm not taking no for an answer, Melanie Griffiths. She smiled shyly and acquiesced. Well, I suppose so, but I can't be long. I have the next session to set up. I'll help, he gushed boyishly. I'm whiz with overhead projectors. Despite herself, she had to laugh. He was very charming, and it was nice to have some attention paid to her. After the messy outcome of her divorce, she needed a little light relief, and perhaps this man could provide that. Perhaps Simon Rochester wasn't that bad after all. He did seem keen. She only hoped she wasn't giving off the impression that she was lonely, which, of course, she was. Lunch consisted of an assortment of hot and cold pasta dishes, salads and chili con carne. They somehow managed to secure a table to themselves, probably due to the fact that neither of them had fancied the cold pasta dishes or salad, both opting for the chili con carne, the faster serving option at the end of the line. She had hardly eaten 2 mouthfuls by the time Simon had finished his meal and was wiping his mouth with a serviette. Hungry? She asked. Was it that obvious? Sort of, she laughed. You can go back for seconds. He scanned the buffet table and seeing only a few people waiting, excused himself. She was utterly fascinated by him, never taking her eyes off him for a moment, so much so that she didn't notice Carol come and sit by her. Can I join you? Of course, sit yourself down. Mel replied absent-mindedly. I see you've relented then. Carol's eyes sparkled wickedly. I'm having lunch with a delegate, that's all. Melanie's reply was curt and flat. Yeah, sure. When Simon returned to the table with yet another full plate of chili, he smiled at Carol and squeezed her hand, making Melanie's heckles rise. She wasn't sure whether it was disgust at the man's shamefaced actions or jealousy. Jealousy seemed the more appropriate when put together with the fact her heart raced each time he looked at her and she seemed unable to string 2 words together coherently. So, he said, you two know each other? Oh, been friends for years, haven't we, Melanie? Yes. We met when we both worked for Instack UK. Carol turned to her friend. Trouble was, that was where she met her first husband, Dan, there too, didn't you? What? Are you listening to a word I'm saying?" Carol began laughing and turned to Simon. "She's not normally like this. You can't usually get a word in edgeways." "Perhaps there's a reason." He fixed Melanie with a stare across the table, smiling at her. "We all shut off at times, don't we?" Melanie scraped the legs of her chair along the wooden floor in her haste to leave the table. "Will you excuse me? I have to set up for the next session." She hurried away, hoping he wouldn't follow her, hoping he wouldn't decide to be a whiz with the overhead projector. So that's the next little bit. Sorry, I'm doing this in the morning, and as I said before, my throat's a little bit dry, so I do apologise that I've stumbled over a few of the words this morning, but I hope you're enjoying the story. If you like it, give me a thumbs up. If you don't, give me a thumbs down. This will be on my YouTube channel and also on my Facebook page at /Dinah Redman Books. Please leave me a comment. It's fantastic that you're interacting with me, and I'm getting to know whether or not you're enjoying this story or not from the feedback that I've got at the moment. It seems that you are, so that's cool, thank you. But, if you're not, please feel free to tell me, because that makes me a better writer. It makes me understand what my readers and fans want. So that's fantastic for me. So you're doing me a favour by giving me feedback, whether it's negative or positive. So I will see you soon, maybe not over the weekend now, but I look forward to speaking to you next week. Bye for now.